Welcome to the Sun today for the 5th of February 2025. Solar activity has remained high. The sunspot number is still at about 160. We have one new numbered region on the disk, plus another region coming over the southeast limb. Flare activity, we had 14 C flares, which is about the same as yesterday, but only 2 M flares, which is down, and 7 coronal mass ejections, which was again about the same as yesterday. The solar wind speed has remained at about 400 kilometers per second, and the Earth's magnetosphere is still relatively quiet, with not much opportunity or major geomagnetic storms. Okay, let's take a look at the sunspots. We have 12 regions, including that new one coming over the southeast limb there, marked in red. That may be the return of 3961. We've seemed to have lost most of the regions in the southern hemisphere, or at least they've shrunk considerably, whereas the northern hemisphere regions still seem to be quite numerous. Those numbers may well start to drop as those regions approach the limb. 3985 has not grown very much since yesterday. In fact, if anything, it may have shrunk. 3983 and 3986 have been numbered. Now, as the sun rotates, we're beginning to see the full extent of that coronal hole in the eastern hemisphere. It extends over 10 degrees east-west and about 50 degrees north-south. Remember, when we're looking at the sun, the sub-Earth point is always exactly in the center of the solar disk. So that would mean that this coronal hole will sweep across the Earth in a couple of days' time. At that point, the KP index, which has remained stubbornly low, should start to increase. In fact, it may have slightly increased already, being between 1 and 2 rather than between 0 and 1. As I said, geospace, i.e. the Earth's magnetosphere, looks relatively quiet. However, the auroral arc looks a little bit brighter than the last couple of days, so we may be seeing a start of an increase in geomagnetic activity. Unfortunately, we have very little imaging from the Solar Dynamics Observatory, so I can't show you a movie of the flares that have occurred today. But hopefully tomorrow that situation will be remedied. We do actually have enough data to have fortunately caught a filament eruption on the disk, and which leads to both a 2-ribbon flare and a coronal mass ejection. So I have this movie taken in the AIA helium-2 304 channel. It's about a 3-hour movie taken on the 4th, and it's near the southwest limb of the sun, and we'll have 2 repeats. First thing to note here is this long dark filament that stretches all the way across the sun in the southern hemisphere. Part of it becomes unstable and erupts away from the sun. That would have created a coronal mass ejection, and it leaves behind 2 bright parallel lines, which is called a 2-ribbon flare. Imagine if this whole filament had become unstable and erupted. It would have been quite a spectacular event, and we have had things like that before. As I mentioned earlier, we had 7 CMEs recorded today. Solar wind speed was steady at about 400 kilometers per second. And we will show you a coronagraph movie from SOHO with the GOES-R helium-2 304 image for the center of the disk. That will be followed by a SOHO LASCO C2 and C3 movie, and that will show you both the inner high-resolution field of view and compare it to the events in the larger C3 field of view. You will see there's a large coronal mass ejection off the southwest limb there. That was the result of the filament eruption that I just talked about. Here is the combination of the high resolution inner field of view, the red area, which is the same as the movie that I just showed you, and the large field of view, which is at much lower resolution. You can see a much larger area, and you can see Mercury edging in from the right. Now for the tricky part, tomorrow's forecast. I suspect the sunspot number will remain the same, maybe slightly drifting lower. The solar flare activity is moderating, so I expect fewer big flares and a lot more smaller flares. Solar wind speed to increase in the next day or two as that coronal hole comes into play. And there'll be, as a result of that, more significant geomagnetic activity. But in the next day or two, that's unlikely. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Stay safe until next time. Goodbye.